Every mile drives the economy, from the drivers who fill the shelves to the professionals, investments, and innovations that support it. Behind it all are decisions made every day, under pressure and at scale. Hosted by leaders from across the industry, this is Cents Per Mile, insights that drive better decisions. A CD Life production.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of Cents Per Mile. I am joined by my esteemed colleagues, as always, Tom Albrecht and Karen Schmierczek. Guys, it's great to have you back again. Great to tackle an amazing, really just an amazing topic today. We're talking about veterans in the trucking space, and what an amazing sort of match between those two. Veterans obviously are our heroes. I truly believe that. They're out there serving and protecting us day in, day out, away from their families. I think the families are heroes as well for supporting all of these folks that are out there doing that. And trucking can be a good destination for some of these folks coming out. So, Karen, just curious, in your world, I'm sure you have veterans that work for you. I'm sure you have veterans and families. How does this fit into Virium?
Well, we definitely track the veterans that we have in our fleet. And I think it just really starts with respect for the veterans, honoring what they did for our country or what they do if they're currently still in the military. But just, I think as a whole, there's a lot of qualities from veterans that transfer directly into trucking, from that discipline standpoint, for procedures on pre and post trip inspections, operating with real accountability, respect for safety, chain of command, and just having grace under pressure when you're out there getting pivots of, hey, your load assignment changed. Well, that happens in the military as well. So I think there's truly some great alignment with veterans and the trucking industry.
Absolutely. And we're talking about veteran drivers. We have a program called Veterans in Trucking. Go out and check it out, veteransinTrucking.com. And its pure purpose is to help veterans find jobs in trucking and really to help companies build a veteran ready program, which is a whole big topic that we need to dive into a little bit later. Tom, again, it's not just about drivers. It's about any position, finance, logistics, operations, really anything in trucking. These heroes really provide an awesome resource for any company, even insurance, right?
Well, yeah, and we've probably got a dozen employees that had a distinguished military career. But what I was thinking about a moment ago was Walmart, with one of the preeminent supply chain teams anywhere in the world, has been stocked full of military veterans for decades, and they continue that tradition. So many of them come from West Point, but also folks that served in other ways, maybe on the front lines of battle. They recognized a long time ago the fantastic talent, fantastic work ethic of folks coming out of the military background.
Absolutely. Yeah. So a few years back, we were really honored to partner with a group to send a group of veterans back to Vietnam and to record that and to just document that. And it was the first time that some of these folks have stepped foot on Vietnam soil since the war. And it was amazing. Actually, that was the first that was really happening as I first joined the company. And so I am truly honored to welcome Brad Bentley, our guest today. Brad's president of FASTPORT, data and technology company that helps companies solve some of the biggest recruiting and retention problems. Brad's scope goes beyond trucking, but he has done so much for veterans in this space. And so, Brad, it's great to have you. One of the top folks in the space, one of the best people in the space for sure. Appreciate you joining. Tell us a little bit about FASTPORT and your work with veterans.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. Looking forward to this today. I'm going to start with something you just mentioned, which was that trip to Vietnam. That was just a couple of years ago. FASTPORT and CDO Life were part of that with Waypoint Vets, and we found Vietnam veterans who were still working in the trucking industry, picked 10 of them to go over for that healing adventure. And I was fortunate enough to be able to go on that trip. And it was interesting because none of those 10 veterans knew each other, and they had all served in different capacities, different branches of service. But they all had kind of this common thread where they wanted to see if it was worth it. They wanted to see what had happened to that country. And there were a lot of breakthroughs as part of that trip. So that's just one of the neat things we've been able to do over the years as we've worked with a lot more veteran service organizations. We've never lost focus on the trucking industry, though, because of my background and others in our management team. But FASTPORT really started about 15 years ago as a pure technology company, designing digital tools, if you will, for veteran service organizations. Just to give you a couple of examples, the one we're best known for, there's a group that's part of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation called Hiring Our Heroes. They do in-person events on military installations, what we call left of transition. So this is while people are still active duty, before they're transitioning out for their first civilian jobs. And we help them design something called a resume engine. And what that will do is we'll take a military job, an MOS, an AFFC, depends on the branch of service, and it will convert that to civilian language so that someone in HR, talent acquisition, whatever the case may be, but someone who will now understand the attributes. I heard Karen mention some of those earlier, but that's really what that tool does. And that kind of launched us. We've done a veteran roadmap for President Bush 43 as part of his military service initiative. And, those were two national projects. The latter one we tell people there's a sea of goodwill out there, but not everybody shows you how to navigate that. So this was kind of a clearinghouse, if you will, to show people the various organizations and resources that are available to them, whether they're already out, could be for military spouses, could be for families, people that are getting ready to transition. So we're very proud of that work, and it's been a fun ride. It's changed a lot over the last decade or so that I've been involved. When we got going, the unemployment rate was really high for veterans specifically. It was over 15%, 3 to 4 times the national average in some cases. That is now down to about 3%. I'm not taking credit for that. There were a lot of organizations that pitched in, and all the work started about the same time. You had Joining Forces starting out of the White House. You had Hiring Our Heroes that I mentioned as part of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation, Veteran Jobs Missions from J.P. Morgan Chase, and all these groups coming together, challenged corporate America, challenged industries to step up, and they've done that. And I'm proud of the work that, frankly, the trucking industry has done. It's always been patriotic, but now cultures are better. And I think we'll probably talk a little bit about some specific programs later in the interview. But we also need to keep in mind that other industries more recently have stepped in there, and we're going to lose that stranglehold, if you will, on that talent pipeline that's always coming out if we're not careful.
Trucks run on diesel, but America runs on truck drivers. Every day, they keep shelves stocked, businesses moving, and our economy alive. With nearly 60 million views and 2.9 million followers, this is where drivers live. If you are looking for drivers, they're at CDL Life.
Let's start with the veteran, the person, right? That's really what it's all about. Obviously, the companies can benefit from having great people on board, but that transition from military life to civilian life can be arduous. Like, it can be tough for a lot of these folks that are coming out. And talk a little bit about your experience there, some of the things that you've seen and some of the things that helps in that transition.
Well, FASTPORT, we go out to a lot of the installations. Myself, 3 or 4 others on our team do a lot of travel. We also have a division called Semper Forward that goes out to events. So we're probably 70 to 80 times a year. And this is worldwide. We don't limit it just to the continental U.S. We're going over to Germany, Japan, places like that, where there's a lot of people that need help as they're trying to come back to the United States. But what we see is it's getting better, but the the program that veterans go through is called TAP. It's an acronym, and it's only about a week. And frankly, sometimes it's a little bit too late. It's kind of a crash course, if you will. So one of the goals for us going to do workshops, and again, other industries are doing this, I'm out there personally talking about career paths in the trucking industry, entry level being truck drivers, diesel technicians. If people want to be more in operations or sales, we've got apprenticeship programs that we specialize in as well to put them into freight broker jobs, et cetera. But what we're starting to see is a shift to where companies will start having conversations earlier with these service members. So that's what we're really encouraging people to do when we're out there is, go out, get a LinkedIn profile, start doing some research, pick an industry, find who the top companies are there, see if they have a military tab on their website. And in a lot of cases, and there's a lot of trucking companies who do this, they will have mentors that are assigned, and we'll encourage them to connect with someone in an organization, gives them a chance to kind of kick the tires, if you will, find out if that's a good cultural fit for them, see if they have some of those benefits that are available through registered apprenticeships and other programs. So that's been encouraging to see things change over the years on both sides. So I think the service members are better prepared. When I first started doing this, we were a little green, kind of going out there, we're going to certain installations for the first time. We didn't know the type service members at the time and the different military jobs that were on specific installations. Now we've got that down pretty much to a science. But we go to these first few hiring fairs, and people were just walking up going, "Hey, what do you got for me?" Right? And that was a little bit discouraging. But now we see that they're better prepared. You get buy-in from leadership at the bases. They tend to have a lot of other programs on the installations as well. From DOL Vets has an Employment Navigator program, for example. So they're showing up better prepared. In a lot of cases, they've already done a resume, like the resume engine that I mentioned earlier, because that's communicated in advance, and it gives us that first step, that first conversation's a lot better, and we can help them. And even if they want to choose another industry, we've got more connections now through the work that FASTPORT does as an intermediary for the U.S. Department of Labor. So we're able to help out those service members, and it's a lot more efficient for us than it was when we were just getting going a decade or so ago.
I'm curious, Brad. We've talked a lot about kind of helping the transition, but before that transition from the military occurs, what's the general impression of the trucking and logistics industries? Do people have strong opinions? Do you have to spend a lot of time educating them that there's truck driving jobs, but there's a lot more? Can you just help us understand how military people often view this great big industry?
Well, you have a lot of direct skill set translations. So if you have in the Army, for example, one of the MOSs is an 88 Mike. That's a truck driver in the Army, right? That's easy for someone like that to understand. There's a civilian equivalent to that job. And same thing with people that work in motor pools, diesel technicians, et cetera. But what they don't understand a lot of times is the career paths that can be there for them. I remember early on we would go, we were down in South Georgia at one of the bases, and we were running into a lot of technicians, and they come up and I'm like, I just don't know, where that could take me in that industry. And I'm like, well, let's just, for sake of argument, say that you want to continue turning that wrench. You can go to work for travel plazas, and we have several that we work with that have very robust training programs. You can start out, they may have 300 or 400 locations that you'd be able to move to over time. You can work for truck dealerships if you find a specific manufacturer that you like and you learn the ins and outs of their engines, their equipment, their trailers, et cetera. Or you can go to work for the fleets. And what you'll find is all three of those groups kind of poach from each other, but it creates that kind of natural career path. And that's important for us because one of the things that bothered me early on is we were going to installations and we would have people that would come up after a presentation and they would be like, you know what, I'm interested in it. I understand this. I have a logistics background. And let me pause there just for a second. That's one thing we always tried to begin our presentations with is everybody that's in the room. If we're in front of 250 soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, whatever the case may be, we would tell them, hey, first of all, relax. You're qualified to be in this room. You already work for the largest logistical operation in the world, which is the U.S. military, especially if you've been on deployments. Okay. So sometimes you see them kind of relax a little bit and that'd perk them up some, but it never would fail. People would come up at the end of those presentations and they would be like, I'd like to own my own business one day. And we took that to heart. And that's a program I know we're going to talk about a little bit later, but that's the real reason that we started our Transition Trucking Driving for Excellence contest. That's something we do with Kenworth and Hiring Our Heroes. We award a Kenworth truck to a veteran every year. But we did that because of those one-on-one conversations so that we could show people you can come into this industry, you can learn an operation. It's going to be a little different, maybe at Karen's Trucking Company versus somebody else's. But at the end of the day, that's the best introduction you can have. And then when you're comfortable with that and you want to go out on your own, there are resources available to you to start your own business. So, but as far as overall impressions, it's changed over time. There's a lot of surveys that are done every 5 to 10 years. One is the RAND study, R-A-N-D. And I remember early on, trucking, transportation, logistics, TDL, if you will, transportation, distribution, logistics, always ranked high for recognition and as far as those skill set translations coming out as an industry. But what you've seen change over time is there's been a big push where you have as many entry-level jobs opened in cybersecurity. Now you're seeing that happen in AI, and you're seeing other industries that have kind of, I guess, followed the template because trucking was out there. You were already seeing, in addition to FASTPORT, you had some companies who were going to some of the installations. You had people that were doing skill bridge programs. Ryder's a good example on the technician side of the house. They started with one installation. They built that up to 2 or 3. I think they're at 8 now at last count. So, and you're seeing the same thing with truck driving schools going on the bases, with Troops into Transportation, Phoenix Truck Driving School, people like that. But other groups have caught up. So whether you're looking at the energy sector, doing things with wind, solar, now you're seeing skill bridge programs for trying to recruit people into IT. You're seeing a big push, put people in data centers. So we have to remind folks that we have the good jobs. And even though some of these now are starting to come in with some entry-level pay that's higher than maybe where it was a few years ago compared to trucking, we got to remind them that we still have the career paths there to attract them in.
Brad, that was really good because veterans aren't only drivers in this industry. And Viri has a lot of high quality veterans in our office, in our shop. But I'll say, and what I would add is we've been blessed with some really great veteran drivers, with a handful of them over the last 10 years being finalists in the Transition Trucking Driving for Excellence. So dive into that program for us.
Well, again, I gave you the high-level overview of why we started it, to try to, find that entrepreneurial path. It still amazes me that this will be our 11th year doing the program. But when I first made the phone call to the folks at Kenworth, and that we chose Kenworth because they're American owned. We thought it was a nice tie-in with PACCAR, et cetera. And we said, we've got a big ask. This is a big idea. We would be willing to take care of the excise tax and give these people a clear title and do some things if you could donate a truck. And they said yes. And for 10 years in a row, when we've gone back every year, they've said yes again. So they have been fantastic partners. But really the way it's structured, and again, we brought in Hiring Our Heroes, felt like being able to go to their installations and take an actual truck with us several times a year would draw a lot of attention. So the way we've always launched this is we will have a Kenworth T680. That's the truck that we normally give away. It's manufactured there in Chillicothe, Ohio, not too far from Louisville, Kentucky. So we pick the Mid-America Trucking Show every year. We bring the truck. We have it at the FASTPORT booth, and we let people see it, and we kick off the contest there, have about a 3-month nomination period where either someone from a driver training school or someone from a fleet or even a self-nomination. There's a process where people will be able to apply for the contest. The rules are fairly simple. We look for people that have made that transition into the industry in the past 18 months. So if you look at what we're doing for 2026, people that came in from January 1st, 2025 up until this point. And we just closed out nominations for this year's contest just a couple of weeks ago. But we have them submit essays. We ask them questions about their impressions of the industry, what they've seen, good and bad, challenges, things that have impressed them, things that they compare to the military. We do a lot of background checks. We want to verify that they, have a DD-214, the form that when you're discharged from the military, and that they're actually honorably discharged. We're able to see some of their service records that way, any accommodations, medals, et cetera, that they've had. We ask the trucking companies, and Karen, you've done this for some of your drivers. As you mentioned, you've had finalists over time, but we get people like yourself to not only make the nominations, but provide support letters for that service member. And then we want to hear from them with those essay questions. And the good news is FASTPORT just facilitates it. We have a selection committee. We've got, I think, 11 people on that. Some are veterans. Some are still serving as reservists. All are involved in the trucking industry, though. We've got people that are with trade associations, people on the legal side, the insurance side. Try to get different opinions and have people that'll look for different things. But it's been an amazing program when you're able to hand the keys to a $160,000+ asset over to somebody and put them in a position where they can go from driving for a fleet to setting up, either signing on with that current fleet as an owner operator or going out as a true independent contractor. And we try to make sure, though, that we've learned this lesson over time. We've partnered with OIDA to put them through their training program. We have a partnership with National University if someone wants to get a business degree, where they can go through and do that before they step out there and become a business owner and just keep driving as a company driver for a while. But it's been a wonderful program. We'll be awarding that 11th truck this year in December. Traditionally, we do that from the steps of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, right across from the White House in Washington, D.C. This year, we're actually going to be doing it at West Point as part of our Veteran Ready Summit. So we're excited about that. But in between all the time that the stories come in and the evaluations are done, I think my favorite part of it is we go to Columbus, Ohio in September every year. We go to the National Veterans Memorial and Museum, beautiful facility downtown Columbus, and our selection committee narrows these men and women down to a group of finalists. It usually ranges from 10 to 12 each year, and we have a recognition dinner for them. We bring them in, they get to see the truck, we tell their stories, they get to tour the museum, and then the following day in the morning we go down to Chillicothe where the truck's manufactured, and they get to see a T680 rolling off the assembly line. and then we announce who our finalists are going to be, and then we pay. Some years it's 3, some years it's 4, but we'll pay their way to come up for our Veteran Ready Summit and take part in those activities. And one person drives off with the keys to that truck, and 2 others get some cash prizes and a lot of camaraderie. And it's a great program. We love doing it every year.
I mean, I got to tell you, Brad, some of the more heartfelt events, the one in Columbus and the one there in DC, and just the faces in these people, these folks that have this opportunity, and their excitement level just to be a part of it, to be recognized, and to have the opportunity that's really life-changing. I mean, I remember the guy who won it last year. He had his wife there, right? And they just what a great story. I'm sure you've heard story after story and face after face of impacts that's made. But and that is phenomenal. I think one of the things that I've learned in this space is there's a lot of people talking about, hey, come to work for our company. We love veterans. We love veterans. And, being vet ready is completely different from loving veterans, right? Having a place there that supports them, that's ready for them. There was just a phenomenal statement by one of the veterans at last year's Vet Ready Summit, is that veterans are not charity cases. Like we don't want that. We don't need that. We have things that we want and need out of a company. And a lot of people talk, but very few companies put up the effort to be truly vet ready. So I know you have you mentioned Vet Ready Summit coming up, and just talk a little bit about what it means to truly be vet ready, and how this Vet Ready Summit is really geared towards helping companies build that type of program.
Well, again, with everything that FASTPORT's done over time, we learned from our mistakes. We went into this just trying to make an impact. And one of the things that bothered us, we'd already launched transition trucking. That was going well. We were starting to do some cool projects like ESGR, where once a year we'd bring people into the Pentagon to show support for the Guard and Reserve, and had some things that were interactive. But there was a statistic that was still kind of hanging out there nationally, and we wanted to see if we could move the needle on that. And what it is 50% of veterans who transition out, and this is across all industries, within 6 months are usually making a job change. So the reason for that is because there's twofold. We mentioned the TAP process earlier not being perfect. There's a lot of reasons that maybe a service member needs to stay in an area for a little bit of time. Maybe they got a kid in the school system. Maybe a husband or wife has a job and they need some time to work through that before they're in a position to leave. But whatever the reasons are, we felt like if we can have better trained companies and have a better landing spot with better cultures for these people to have for their first job, that we could get that number down, at least for the trucking industry. So that's how we conceptualized the Veteran Ready Summit. What we really wanted to do with that is bring in as many resources as possible to be able to show people, first of all, yes, I'm patriotic. Maybe I am military friendly at my company, but I'm truly not veteran ready, but I want to be. So we'd had people like Psych Armor that does these video training modules. That's internally for customers to be ready. But the thing I loved about it more than anything else is it's different going to a military hiring fair than if we're going to, say, I mentioned the Mid-America Trucking Show earlier, right? If you're set up across the aisle from somebody and you're both trying to recruit a driver and you have a conversation with them and it doesn't work out, you don't send them across the way normally to your competitor. But if you're on an installation and you run into a service member that maybe has a fit for this industry, there are other vendors who are there who'll send them over to the FASTPORT table, or we'll send them over to one of the other companies if it's a better fit, right? And I love that spirit of cooperation. So there were a lot of companies out there that do a good job, that have established training programs, that were willing to share those best practices. And because of that, and we did this the first 4 years at the headquarters for the American Trucking Associations. They were kind enough to give us space, and we've averaged between 150 and 200 people a year to come in once a year to learn from each other. It's been a huge success from our standpoint, but again, we've tried to expand it now to showcase the industry to other industries, but also to learn from, what's happening now with financial services, what's happening with energy, semiconductor, all these other people that are trying to take away the talent from the trucking industry. So we'll be doing that again this year, December 13th and 14th, I believe it is, or 14th and 15th up in New York, right after the Army-Navy game in MetLife Stadium. We'll have people stay over, and we'll be at West Point for a couple of days, and looking forward to it for sure.
I was thinking about the new CEO at Schneider, Jim Filter. He's a military background. I don't remember which branch of the service, but there's a great success story to share. Earlier we talked about drivers and mechanics, and you also alluded to cyber, which is an opportunity in virtually every industry in America. But beyond mechanics and drivers, do military folks in general understand the vast array of other jobs that exist as an opportunity?
I don't think they do initially. You'll run into a candidate every now and then that maybe is a chief warrant officer or somebody who's been in charge of a lot of equipment in their career. But until you really can get one-on-one with them, and we have career counselors that work with us. We have ladies that do nothing but once they have the resumes from an event are trying to connect them to some of our partners. And that's why these workshops that we do, and I appreciate people like Hiring Our Heroes that'll do these industry-specific career fairs so that people can see everything that's out there and the variety of companies that are out there, mid-level management type jobs, things that are more operations focused. If people want to be in sales, again, you've got something like the freight broker side of the house that you can put people into jobs. So it's a give and take, to be honest. Everybody understands entry level, and when you go to any career fair, doesn't matter the industry, that's always the biggest amount of jobs that are available. But once they see that they have the opportunity to advance within an organization, and we've got tons and tons of success stories over the years, even people that were in our transition trucking program that have gone on to be executives at fleets or start their own businesses, as we talked about earlier.
Well, that's awesome, Brad. Thanks so much for joining us. And hey, if you haven't checked it out, check out Transition Trucking, Vet Ready Summit, and FASTPORT. I'm sure you'll find lots of great information out there. If you're looking to build a vet ready program or find quality talent from these folks coming out of military service, check out Brad. I'm sure he'll help connect you in the right direction. But Tom, Karen, thank you so much for joining again. It's always awesome to have dialogue with you all. Please like, subscribe, comment below. We want to hear from you. Check us out next week at 11:30 on FreightWaves. You can always find us on YouTube, cents per mile, centspermilepodcast.com. Thanks for joining.